Hello, this is Deborah Cohen, and I'm sorry about the technical difficulties. It's a windy day in Clearwater, Florida, and for some reason that is messing up my technology. The wind, somehow affects the internet. And it's like beautiful down here. January, what is today's date? The 28th? And it's probably 68 degrees here in Clearwater. But the wind seems to affect the internet, and I'm not sure why. But anyway, let's continue with this. Instagram people, I'm sorry I couldn't live stream. There was some kind of a glitch going on. So we're just on Twitch. Twitch.tv/Deborah Cohen Music. And this is a continuing series on memory for senior citizens like me that might be concerned about their memory loss. And I want you to know that singing will help to at least retard or slow down the dementias. And if that doesn't interest you, I don't know what will. I hope that you'll listen, and I will be right back after this message. Hello, this is Deborah Cohen. I'm so glad you found me online. My music is a variety of genres, starting in the 80s as a new wave singer-songwriter, opening up for Joan Jett in Kenmore Square, Boston. From there, I wandered into different genres, exploring my faith, praise music, interfaith music, and pop, rock, indie music, as well as music for TV, film, and movies. So there's all kinds of things to learn listening to my podcast, A Story and a Song. And I hope that you will enjoy the journey with me and that you will share what you hear. Thank you for listening. And this is Deborah Cohen. Thank you for being here with me. And we're going to share the next 30-ish minutes. I'm going to read an article. It's a continuing series by an excellent writer. Some of you may know John Colapinto, but I found this article in an unlikely place in an AARP magazine, which when I used to start getting them magazines in the 50s, when I was in my 50s, I'm saying, how dare they mail me AARP? I'm not old. It's like only old people read that. Well, all of a sudden now I'm one of them senior citizens. And the thing I throw them in the trash. But I saw somebody on the front cover that interests me. That's, in case you don't know who that is, that's Ringo Starr, the Beatles drummer. And he's still going strong. And so I thought, wow, maybe this magazine, AARP, is really hip. I'm a musician. I don't want to read like boring stuff like knitting and crocheting. Kudos if you can do it, but that's not my bag. But anyway, this article is part 4 from John Colapinto's article, Rocket Man. And I just wanted to share it with you because it's exciting news for older people that make jokes about their memory. Oh, I'm getting older. I can't remember where I put my tissues or my glasses. Well, just that might be true, but don't keep building a neural pathway to that train of thought, because you are what you say and eat. Think about that. So let's begin. Many caregivers and clinicians report that the memory-enhancing, mood-improving benefits of music are temporary, lasting only as long as the music is playing, and for a period of about 15 minutes afterwards. But, here comes the but, experiments Tomeno conducted in the 1990s suggested something different. Kudos to Tomeno. And if you don't know who Tomeno is, I talked about her. Yes, Marty's in the house. Thank you, Marty. Tomeno, I talked about her in a previous episode. So this is a weekly episode. You'll have to find the previous segment on music therapy. She's a music therapist. In 1993 study funded by a $250,000 grant from the New York State Department of Health. She was able to hire enough music therapists to administer a lavish amount of music therapy on small 5 to 6 person patient groups in 30-minute sessions 3 times a week for 10 months. Okay, I would have volunteered for that. A battery of cognitive tests conducted before and after the therapy revealed significant improvements in brain function and behavior. Formerly silent patients, Tomeno, the music therapist, reported, began addressing staff by name and participating more appropriately in conversations than those who participated in verbal reminiscence groups, implying, she wrote, that there is a potential for improvement in patients with dementia. And in case you're wondering why I'm even bothering with this information, I loved my Nana. I was the first grandchild, and she was so dear to me. And I saw her in her very older years. She broke her hip falling out of bed and ended up in a nursing home. And sometimes she didn't know who I was. It just broke my heart to see her that way. And anyway, so I'm looking for ways to avoid that if it is a genetic predisposition. In a follow-up study in 1996, 121 dementia patients also showed significant changes in behavior and affect. Tomeno, the music therapist, did not have access to an fMRI machine, so her research lacked the hard evidence of psychological brain changes, and her findings failed to gain much traction. But, another but, new research has emerged that supports Tomeno's observations, including fMRI studies published in 2021 from a project led by Michael Thought, a professor of music and of neuroscience in Toronto. And as a side note, if you are watching this video, to my right, you can see a picture on the far right of a brain scan showing areas stimulated by new, recently heard music in the blue color and by long-known tunes in the red. That would be my Beatles tunes. So those Beatles tunes are in my brain. They would show up in an fMRI. So, and I listened to the Beatles in the 60s, so those imprints in my brain are still there. That's exciting. Thought had always been fascinated by the power of music. Prior to becoming a neuroscientist, he had been a professional violinist in Europe. In the early 2000s, while working as a neuroscientist at the University of Colorado, he did groundbreaking research involving people with Parkinson's disease and those recovering from stroke, showing that when rhythmically strong music was played to such patients, they synchronized their walking gait with music and moved more quickly and with better joint control. The therapy is called rhythmic auditory stimulation. So why don't we call it RAS for short? Rhythmic auditory stimulation. Stroke patients walk much more symmetrically and faster, Thought told me recently over Zoom. Parkinson's patients don't have that shuffle and tendency to fall over when they listen to music. For years, this is T-H-A-U-T that I'm saying, Thought, the name of the man here, had been hearing anecdotal reports of music's power to help dementia patients, and he had been eager to study the phenomenon. He got the chance in 2016 when he accepted a professorship at the University of Toronto and helped create a partnership with the Keenan Research Center for Biomedical Science and Geriatric Psychiatry at St. Michael's, one of the largest city hospitals. His first experiments in music and memory using fMRI in music that Alzheimer's patients had loved and listened to for up to 25 years or more, with brand new music created by Mr. Thought and his team. Patients first heard new music an hour before they entered the scanner. So put yourself in this place. Imagine this is happening to you. you are played new music an hour before you enter the scanner, the fMRI. When they heard it again during their scans, it had no deep encoding in the brain. It activated the auditory only. The auditory. Basically a sensory memory, Mr. Thought calls it. The beloved familiar music, however, like AKA the Beatles, when played to patients in the scanner, lit up a larger network of the brain, including the frontal lobes. Oh, let's think about that for a moment while I turn the page. Oh, I'm excited. So hold on to that excitement for a moment while I have a sip of Java. Where higher order reasoning and memory are processed. Higher order reasoning and memory are in your frontal lobes. A clear and objective sign of a musical memory trigger for people with dementia. So if you have elderly folks and you don't communicate with everyone who has dementia, I'm reading Marty says, you've got everyone listening charged up. Woohoo, yay. Okay, so like, for example, I wish I had known this when I visited my Nana. She's gone to heaven now, but I would have brought music that she listened to when she was younger and played that for her. And it would have triggered these memories in the red sections of the brain if you're looking at the scan. And maybe because we listened to music together, then I could have tied in that memory and talked to her as I was then, because there were times when I would visit her in the nursing home, she didn't know who I was. I'm like, oh my gosh, seriously? So if I could have played the older music that she listened to when she was younger, when I was in the picture with her, or not. Maybe you weren't in the picture with your grandmother or grandfather, but still play a tune that they loved when they were younger and watch them light up. The most eye-popping of Mr. Thought's findings is that after 4 weeks of listening to their favorite music daily, patients' brains had a greater density of white matter. So if you have an increase in white matter density or volume in a certain area of the brain, that means there are more highways active between the neurons, those neural pathways I'm talking about in this series. There's more traffic. A dead neuron cannot be brought back to life, but music appears to bolster connections between preserved neurons. So if you have point A and point B in your brain, A and B are still there waiting for the signal. And those pathways, apparently, in dementia patients, they wither and dry up and become disconnected from A and B. But music creates new neural pathways to A and B. So this should get you and me charged up to know you can, activate those memories that were lost from previously burnt out neural pathways. So we are building as much as we can around destroyed stuff, Mr. Thought says. It's a bit like a city that gets bombed. Many houses are gone, but we can emphasize what is still standing. We can figure out how to get a street from here to there. We can rebuild to make that city support as much life as possible. All of this raises the question, for those of us not afflicted by dementia, of whether we should be loading up our Spotify rocking 70s playlists with the songs we first fell in love with in our teens and early 20s. Well, it wasn't the 70s for me, it was the 60s. That period of life when, according to Daniel Levitin, a musician, neuroscientist, and author of a book called This Is Your Brain on Music, published in 2006. In case you want to read up on it, I'll say it again. This is Your Brain on Music by Daniel Levitin. Most people form their musical taste, says Mr. Thought. We can assume that active and positive stimulation is good for brain health. Engaging in music you like and enjoying is definitely a great part of it. Can it reduce risk for dementia in the medical sense, like aspirin against stroke? ? The answer is, unfortunately, no. There are many factors, genetics, injuries, etc., that contribute to disease, but it may provide boost to keep the brain healthy longer. And that is something to get excited about. But wait, there's more. Wait, there's more. And don't worry about friends or spouses who deride you for engaging in empty nostalgia when you fire up Elton John's 72 banger Rocket Man for the 20th time that month. Well, it wouldn't be, I mean, I remember Rocket Man, but if you're in the chat, write down what was your favorite song in the whatever era you were as a teenager. Write it down. I'd like to share it with our listeners here. What was mine? Let's see. Well, you know what? The first thing that pops to my mind is Norwegian Wood by the Beatles. I loved Rubber Soul. I remember waiting for that album to come out as a teenager. With bated breath, there was some kind of a delay with the release of that Beatles record, and I'm like, every day waiting and waiting and waiting for, I guess it was my mother or father or my babysitter that got the album for me. I don't remember who it was, but and talk about neural pathways on that album. I mean, that thing you could see the pathways on the record, when they used to play records. Remember that, with a needle digging grooves like neural pathways in your album. Ah, yes. Okay, so it is precisely the familiarity of such music, the memories around it, the goosebump-inducing pleasure of it, soaring chorus, and the surge of dopamine that can be released by your brain's pleasure and reward centers as that crescendo arrives. I'm a rocket man. Do you feel the goosebumps? And I think it's going to be and I think it's gonna be a long, long time. I bet you my husband knows the words. I can remember phrases of songs, but the most songs, the lyrics I remember are the Beatles. Hands down, the Beatles. I can remember the Beatles lyrics better than my own, and I never really figured that out. Anyway, maybe I have to play my music more to build those neural pathways up for my lyrics. Okay. This is your daily brain exercise, Mr. Thought says, as a general principle. If there's something that's good for you, do it as much as you can. Well, I'm trying to do that principle with exercise. Listening to new music has its own rewards, of course. What better way to bond with a tween than over Taylor Swift? She is a darling, but I have not heard any of her music. I've not listened to her. I'm sorry. I'm not in that generation. But for revving up the memory centers embedded throughout your brain, science seems to suggest that familiar tunes work best. And that is an article that will be continued next week, originally written by John Colapinto in AARP. It was the publication from December 2023 / January 2024. I hope that you enjoyed that. Marty says, those records grooves established our exclaiming that we're so groovy. I like the word groovy. So anyway, I am happy to share this information and know that we need to play music over and over again as senior citizens that we're familiar with, so that if we find ourselves having memory loss issues, this can help to keep your current brain healthy and keep those grooves between point A and B in your brain active brains, brain gym. Now I understand, when I used to go to Silver Sneakers exercise classes when I became a senior citizen, I get really frustrated with their music because they played music that the seniors that were older than me listened to. And I didn't like it at all. It was old music. I didn't like that music. I wish I could go to a Silver Sneakers class where they played the Beatles and the B-52s and the Rolling Stones and Led Zeppelin. I mean, come on. I could definitely excel. If they played a Led Zeppelin song, whoa, look out, fireball right here. But now I understand, if they're appealing to like adults that are 70 and over, I'm not there yet. I don't dig that other music, that older stuff anyway, but Okay, so enough of my rant. I hope that you enjoyed this, and let's see. I am going to share a little blip of my butterfly song. Don't forget to share my music, because when you share, post, like, comment, listen streaming, Spotify, YouTube, whatever, that adds up pennies for my royalties, pennies. And I get paid quarterly as a musician by royalties. So it does matter. You are actually, if you're Jewish, this is a mitzvah to do this for me, So if you would just help me by listening to the music that I write, how do you find it? Well, just go to DeborahCohenMusic.com, or wherever you listen to your music, just type in Deborah Cohen, DebraCohen. So let's hear Butterfly right now.
You were there when I was feeling blue, when I set my eyes upon you, feel me too. We are the people of the human race. Look at your brother now living in disgrace. Do you give him a hand from where on earth you stand? We all have needs in this disunity. People point fingers at their enemies, thinking of hurting one birth from the same seed. People